Today, the state of our state, it is strong.
The governor gives his second State of the State address. We break down his goals to improve your safety and why some Republicans remain skeptical. A lawsuit claims the head of juvenile services allowed rampant prison violence, the ongoing legal battle over his past running New York corrections. Millions of tax dollars for education go unused. Now Maryland schools bringing help to spend it.
They spent money to hire people to train them on how to spend the money.
Yes. Fox 45 News Project Baltimore investigates if there could be more. A 69-year-old woman is carjacked at knife point.
The leading crime against the elderly is robbery.
The tips from a former police chief to help you avoid becoming a victim. Then car window smashed in right outside City Police headquarters.
Misguided anger or something directed at the police department.
Why one expert says you may end up paying for it.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
We're up against a new challenge, and we need to come up with these new solutions.
To find common ground on crime legislation during his State of the State address this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. The governor's comments come as state lawmakers prepare to hold their first hearing on the Democrats' juvenile crime plan tomorrow. Fox 45 News will be in Annapolis as legislators pick through the plan, which focuses really on 3 areas of reform. Lawmakers want to change a portion of the state's current crime code, which states children under 13 can't be charged with certain crimes like firearm offenses, sexual assault, and car thefts. They are also looking for changes within the Department of Juvenile Services, including shorter deadlines for intake decisions and more staff within the ankle monitoring unit. The plan also strives to extend probation for young offenders, which has been a point of contention between lawmakers and Juvenile Service Secretary Vincent Schiraldi.
Tonight, Fox 45 News is taking an in-depth look at Maryland's crime concerns, beginning with Mackenzie Frost and the governor's safety message during his State of the State address.
A lot of the governor's roughly 45-minute speech centered around revamping Maryland and his plan to unveil a new state plan later this week. But it's his calls for partnerships and discussions about public safety choices that has some Republican leaders interested. Governor Wes Moore's second State of the State address.
Happy State of the State, y'all.
Starting with a loud welcome. After making his way through a sea of lawmakers and supporters, the governor taking aim at the major conversation unfolding in Maryland right now, public safety.
That we need to move beyond the simplicity of how pundits talk about public safety and move towards a complexity of how people experience public safety.
Spending time saying he doesn't believe leaders need to pick between focusing on investing in communities and accountability for criminal behavior.
To break these false choices, we need everybody at the table.
Governor Moore calling for consequences and support services as calls grow louder for action on crime, especially youth violence. Governor Moore appears to be shifting his approach. While a Secretary of Juvenile Services Department is a beacon for keeping kids out of the adult criminal justice system, Governor Moore now attempting to reach out to both sides of this debate, even going beyond political alliances.
We will listen to state's attorneys and we will listen to the public defenders.
While the governor hammers the importance of not believing in a false choice, not everyone agrees there is one to begin with. Do you agree that there is a false choice?
I don't think so. I think that's a choice made by the advocates to keep getting softer on crime.
The partnership push welcomed by some Republican leaders who say Democrats in control of the state house have historically gone too far.
You know, we hear some of the words that we've talked about. We don't see that in his legislation, but I think that the message is getting around here that we really have to do something meaningful when it comes to public safety.
For the first time in many, many years that I've been here in Annapolis, you do hear a Democratic leader, the governor, and others finally start to talk about maybe we need to pass some bills that get somewhat tougher on crime rather than softer on crime.
House Minority Leader Jason Buckle says he wants to see the follow-through to the governor's call for accountability. And while he agrees there is a need for investing in the root causes of crime to prevent it in the future, Buckle argues consequences now are critical.
The guy who breaks into your house, carjacks you, hurts you, murders your loved one today, I'm not interested in his root causes. I'm interested in accountability for his actions and getting him off the streets.
Governor Moore doubling down on his public safety legislative package, including calling for a Center for Gun Violence Prevention and Intervention.
We're up against a new challenge, and we need to come up with these new solutions.
How the governor plans to thread the needle between some and his administration, the calls for criminal justice policy change from communities and lawmakers' views has yet to unfold.
We are expecting to learn more details about the governor's plan for the state moving forward at some point Thursday. And it's going to be another busy day in Annapolis because Thursday afternoon, a House committee is set to hold the first bill hearing on the top Democrats' plan to curb youth violence. In the State House, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mayor Brandon Scott voiced his support for Democrats' juvenile crime plan today, saying he or a representative from his office will be in Annapolis for tomorrow's hearing. But the mayor has been slow to endorse other tough on crime measures in the past, including bills to address repeat violent offenders and increase charges for stealing a gun. Both of those bills failed.
We've seen previous tough on crime measures make their way through Annapolis in the past that you've not been in support of. So
you can try to doctor this in any way that you can. We are supportive of anything that's going to actually impact reducing violence in the city, not just kowtowing to fear-mongering and right-wing talking points.
Mayor Scott says his views haven't shifted, but others argue he's playing politics as recent polling shows he trails Sheila Dixon by 14 points in Baltimore's mayoral race.
Mayor Scott is in a tough re-election year, and there's a perception that Sheila Dixon will be tougher on crime because while she was mayor, the crime rates were lower. The mayor is definitely shifting from a lot of things he said when he ran the first time and over the last couple years. What he has generally supported is some of the things that Marilyn Mosby enunciated as far as, not arresting people on petty type of things.
Mayor Scott says he's also introducing his own legislation aimed at reforming home monitoring and probation policies. This after police say a Brooklyn Day mass shooting suspect was wearing a DJS ankle monitor at the time of the shooting.
Probation reform is a key aspect of Democrats' crime plan, but lawmakers haven't always seen eye to eye with DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi on the issue. Schiraldi has argued for abolition of parole and probation programs, saying they don't rehabilitate young offenders. Senator Will Smith says current probation length should be extended to give children the help they need.
What's happening is that when someone is placed on probation, the access to services isn't happening quick enough. And so the length of probation could be halfway over or the majority over before they even get enrolled into services.
Well, the secretary has also faced criticism during his past roles in Washington, D.C. and in New York. Tonight, Fox 45 News digging deeper into a lawsuit surrounding Schiraldi's management of Rikers Island Prison. Fox 45's Jeff Abel joins us live with what the lawsuit describes. Jeff?
Well, this lawsuit is painting a picture of a very violent institution and a very new commissioner who looked the other way.
Secretary Schiraldi understands accountability.
Maryland's governor may call him a reformer, but in New York, some city leaders are calling Vincent Schiraldi a mistake.
Under Schiraldi, everything he promised to do, he didn't.
Young people are not just smaller versions of adults. They're not yet fully mature. Their brains are still developing.
Before he became Maryland's Juvenile Services Secretary, Schiraldi spent 8 months as Corrections Commissioner in New York City.
We have a very dangerous job, which that administration contributed to. So, in my tenure, he's got to be the worst commissioner we've had.
There were just noise and screaming, and they were breaking plexiglass.
In the 8 months that Schiraldi oversaw New York's Rikers Island, city leaders say assaults increased and staff levels decreased, and the city is still attempting to recover. In a federal lawsuit filed by a former inmate who was the victim of a brutal assault at Rikers Island, he accuses Schiraldi of allowing rampant inmate-on-inmate violence, which has been allowed to permeate Rikers Island. The lawsuit also accuses Schiraldi of being aware that the failure to separate violent inmates from nonviolent inmates and the failure to provide adequate supervision resulted in violence and threats of violence amongst inmates.
These type of serious, alarming situations that we're hearing about, they can't be overlooked.
In Annapolis, concerns appear to be deepening over the secretary who's now faced with reforming another troubled system.
Doing better is no longer allowing Secretary Schiraldi to be in a position that there's a lack of accountability apparently amongst his own leadership and himself.
Well, Schiraldi has long endorsed abolishing probation and parole and minimizing the role of law enforcement. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thanks. That brings us to our question of the day. Do you trust Secretary Vincent Schiraldi to run DJS? So far, 99% of people who voted say no. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to share your response.
Fox 45 News has been investigating issues within the Department of Juvenile Services for months. We'll continue to push for transparency. You can find all of our previous reporting online at foxbaltimore.com.
Former Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's sentencing date has been set for May 23rd. Mosby was convicted on one of 2 mortgage fraud charges last night to go along with 2 federal perjury convictions in November. She faces up to 30 years in prison on the mortgage fraud charge and 5 years on each perjury count. Mosby and her ex-husband, Nick Mosby, both testified in this most recent trial, during which Nick Mosby admitted to lying to the public about his tax standing. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost asked Nick Mosby if he thinks he needs to restore the public's trust. We'll have his response coming up at 10:30.
Good evening. It's been another easy day to take. And I wish we could say we're going to continue this all the way through the weekend, but we will have some weather to contend with. Doesn't look like we'll have any problems whatsoever for your morning drive, though. It'll start out chilly, not as cold as we've been. Maybe in the mid-30s. You might start actually above freezing for a change, but it'll become mild, high around 46 degrees. We're going to continue this warm-up as it has now begun. Some weekend showers are in the forecast here. We have a pretty stormy pattern that looks like it's going to be setting up. Will that mean rain or will that mean winter weather? Good question. We're going to answer that and talk about the timing of it, too, coming up.
All right, Gerard, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock, someone smashes car windows right outside the Baltimore City Police headquarters overnight. Why one expert says this could be part of a bigger problem and how that could impact your wallet. A 69-year-old woman is carjacked in Glen Burnie in a parking lot. We take a look at the crime trend that has residents on edge and how you can protect yourself. A Project Baltimore report finds Maryland school systems are spending your tax dollars on learning how to spend your tax dollars. Chris Papps explains after the break.
Project Baltimore is sponsored by the Snyder Law Group. Don't just sue them, Snyder them.
Tonight, Maryland school systems spending your tax dollars on hiring consultants to learn how to spend your tax dollars.
It sounds a bit bizarre. As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, a recent audit by the Inspector General for Education found that's exactly what happened.
Knowing how much money that was earmarked for this program, we thought it was very important.
Rick Henry is the Maryland Inspector General for Education. On Tuesday, his office released this report, which raises serious questions about how local school systems are spending your tax dollars.
The blame has to be placed on MSDE because they were the ones who were running the program.
A few years ago, lawmakers in Annapolis passed the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, which pumped billions of additional dollars into public education. One of the programs the Blueprint created was the Concentration of Poverty Grant, which provides extra funding to schools in areas with high rates of poverty and crime. The money is intended for health care and other social services, but the IG found millions of dollars from that grant went unused because the Maryland State Department of Education did not train school systems on how to spend it.
MSDE had to hold all the responsibility in this because the local school systems were just crying for help. How do we spend this? What do we spend it on? And they weren't getting any response from MSDE.
From fiscal years 2020 to 2022, Henry says the program issued $233 million to school systems statewide. This audit only looked at 8 of Maryland's 24 school systems and found $12.3 million from the grant went unused. But what about the rest of the $233 million? Why was much of it used right away? Henry says many school systems hired consultants to study the law and train them on how to spend the money. The exact amount spent on consultants is not known because those consultants also performed other tasks.
Some of the school systems were able to spend the money because they spent money to hire people to train them on how to spend the money.
Yes, if you want to say it in that way, yes, they hired individuals to train them that were a program that was managed by MSDE.
Remember, the IG's audit only looked at these 8 schools. Baltimore City and Prince George's County, the 2 districts with the most high poverty schools, were not included. Which raises the question, could it be more than $12 million that went unspent for years because the state did not properly train the school systems on how to spend it?
It could be a larger problem. Of course it could be.
MSDE has recently come under new leadership. In October, following a series of Project Baltimore reports into his leadership, then State Superintendent Mohammed Chaudhry stepped down. A few weeks later, Dr. Carrie Wright took over as interim superintendent. Henry's report issues a series of recommendations for MSDE, which includes improving how it monitors the Concentration of Poverty Grant to ensure the funds are not misallocated. MSDE says it has already implemented some of the recommendations, and it plans to implement most all of the rest of them.
They were very cooperative during all parts of this process. They responded. They actually have a audit company or an audit provider who is looking at this right now, and we're going to wait and see what they come up with.
I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Well, Project Baltimore wants to hear from you. Do you have a story to share about your child's education or a concern you'd like our team to investigate? Call the tip line on your screen or send an email to projectbaltimore@foxbaltimore.com. You can also find us on social media.
I'm Christine Frizzau in Washington, where families of Israeli hostages spent the day. What they're asking for and what we're learning about a potential deal to bring them home.
We will be in pretty good shape once we can get through the next couple of days. We are still tracking a warm-up. I know that Mary is looking forward to this big time because we are tracking temperatures that could reach 60 degrees. Tonight, not so much. It's only 31, but we're going to get there. We're going to talk about what else is coming our way coming up.
All right, Gerard, thank you. Still nice enough as we go to break and look at our harbor cam from the Inner Harbor. Back in a moment.
U.S. military leaders say a strike tonight in Baghdad killed the Hezbollah commander responsible for several attacks on American forces, including the deaths of 3 American soldiers in Jordan. U.S. and Iraqi officials say a drone targeted a car with the commander inside. And this comes exactly 4 months after the start of the Israel-Hamas war. Top White House officials are continuing to negotiate for the release of hostages held by Hamas. National correspondent Christine Frizzau has an update on those talks.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
On Capitol Hill, a reminder of the agony that remains reality for more than 100 families.
She's our sunshine.
The parents of 23-year-old Romy Gonen joining other hostage families to ask for more to be done to bring them home. Many revealing they've been kept in the dark by their own government.
We don't know if our son is still alive. We didn't get anything from the Israeli intelligence for more than 70 days.
Lawmakers vowing to keep the pressure on.
The hostages must be released.
This week, a tragic revelation that of the 136 hostages still being held in Gaza, dozens are dead or feared dead.
We've given information to 31 families of hostages who are no longer alive, and we determined their death.
The release of their remains and of the others is at the center of negotiations between Secretary of State Antony Blinken and the leaders of Qatar, Egypt, as well as Israel and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. A deal that reportedly includes a pause in the war, the release of Israeli hostages and Palestinians held in Israeli jails, and the allowance that more food, water, medicine, and supplies be brought into Gaza.
There's a lot of work to be done, but we are very much focused on doing that work and hopefully being able to resume the release of hostages that was interrupted so many months ago.
For now, that work will continue as Israel has just rejected the latest counteroffer from Hamas. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying there is no solution besides total victory, as many hostage families worry continued war means a diminished chance of their loved ones ever coming home. I'm Christine Frizzau reporting.
Let's go live to Capitol Hill, where Senate Republicans blocked a bipartisan bill to pair billions of dollars in aid for Ukraine and Israel together with border security measures. Most Republicans said they would vote against the measure, claiming it doesn't do enough. A Republican-led vote to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas failed in the House, leading to further divide between the parties.
As House Democrats, we actually care about governing. That's the difference. We are here to serve the American people.
You're seeing the messy sausage making, the process of democracy play out. And it's not always clean, it's not always pretty, but the job will be done at the end of the day.
Officials in New York City say the migrant crisis is getting worse, as last night we reported on several migrants released from prison after an assault caught on video in Times Square. Police say those suspects were set free without bail. Last night we asked if people arrested for violent crimes should be released without bail. More than 12,000 people responded. 97% of those who voted said no.
The criminals just do what they want to do, and they don't care how old anybody is.
An armed carjacking in a Walmart parking lot, raising concern over who's being targeted. Why some say thieves are going after older victims.
Governor Moore pledges full support for the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, or Kerwin plan, while local leaders have expressed frustration.
We are following some breaking news out of Northeast Baltimore. A heavy police presence on Bel Air Road near Nicholas Avenue. This is in the Bel Air Edison Safe Streets zone. That site has been closed since the FBI executed a search warrant there in October. We have a crew on the way to the scene. Again, a police presence there. We'll bring you updates as they come into our newsroom.
We're following three big stories at 10:30. The city council president, Nick Mosby, says he was surprised by the way his testimony in his ex-wife's federal trial played out. Fox 45 News hears from Mosby and Mayor Scott amid concerns about his fitness for public office.
Governor Moore unveiling an ambitious housing plan during his State of the State address, why some say the bill goes too far.
From shopping centers to police headquarters, experts say car crime continues to impact every corner of the state. And we begin there, as some argue criminals are targeting specific areas and groups of people.
Tonight, our team of reporters looking into these latest incidents, beginning with Vincent Hill and a 69-year-old woman carjacked in a Walmart parking lot. Vincent?
Yeah, Mary. So a retired police chief tells me crimes against the elderly are on the rise for one simple reason, because they're easy targets.
At the Walmart on Ritchie Highway,
said he was forced out of her vehicle.
an armed carjacking just before 6 p.m.
He took a black Mercedes convertible and he was armed with a black knife.
The victim, according to Anne Arundel police, a 69-year-old woman.
That's horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Shoppers in the area reacting to how old the victim was.
Let's just do what they want to do, and they don't care how old anybody is.
Yvonne says she's adjusted her schedule so she too doesn't become a victim.
Really, I don't do any stores at night anymore because of the carjackings that have been numerous everywhere.
Retired police chief Curtis Clemens.
The leading crime against the elderly is robbery.
Says crimes like carjackings involving the elderly is seeing an uptick.
Nationwide, based on the Bureau of Justice statistics, there has been an increase of crimes against the elderly. They generally don't have the strength to fight back.
Last month, a 77-year-old Bolton Hill man was beaten during an attempted carjacking.
A group of teenage boys jumped out and attacked them.
The assault sent him to the hospital with brain injuries, according to his wife.
And they told me that they had never seen violence to this extent.
Last November,
all of a sudden, these two kids came up to me.
72-year-old Donna Talent was pistol whipped during a carjacking.
He could have killed me just by hitting me on the head the way he did.
Clemens has this tip for the elderly to reduce their chance of becoming a victim.
I would often encourage the seniors to, one, if they can, travel during the day, run your errands during the day.
And he says that there's strength in numbers.
To travel in groups of 2 or more, you're less likely to be a target if there's more people involved.
And that suspect who carjacked that 69-year-old woman was arrested that night. Last month, he was actually arrested for stealing a car, but released. We're live tonight. Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Thank you. Carjackings are also a concern in Baltimore City. Police have reported 46 carjackings through the first 5 weeks of the year. The city has seen more than 800 car thefts this year after a record-breaking 11,000 thefts last year. Fox 45 News hears from residents who are frustrated with the trend.
I'm 49 years old. I work hard for my little piece of crap. I be damn one of these little kids come and try to steal my cars. I'm giving them something they could get stolen. I'm not playing that. People work hard for their cars.
Well, those concerns extend to the front entrance of City Police Headquarters, where several police cars appear to have been vandalized last night. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live with an update on the investigation. Keith.
Well, Kyle, we're live outside of City Police Headquarters. Now, city inspectors and engineers, they shut down the BPD garage about 6 months ago, closed until permanent structural repairs are made. Now, that leaves cars like these parked on the streets. And tonight, reports of vandalism. At Baltimore City Police Headquarters, you see remnants of criminal conduct. On the ground, shattered glass fallen from several unmarked police vehicles and civilian cars vandalized. The cars were parked behind headquarters on Baltimore Street, where someone, we're told, smashed the windows late Tuesday night. The glass still on the ground, visible at these 3 parking spaces. The incident confirmed by detectives and BPD employees who talked to us but did not want to be interviewed on camera. A crime committed right outside police headquarters. Jason Johnson,
that certainly is a bold move.
Law enforcement expert and former BPD deputy commissioner, on just how brazen of a crime it is.
Police headquarters, no matter what time of day it is, even at night, it's sort of a hub of activity. There are people coming and going all the time, and many of the people that are entering the property or passing through it are police officers.
Still, it happened.
It's obviously misguided anger or something directed at the police department. Anytime you hear about someone attacking law enforcement officers or symbols of law enforcement officers, I find it troubling.
But Kenji Scott,
it sounds like they were just out drunk, high, doing dumb stuff.
A community activist in Northeast Baltimore, unlike Johnson, doesn't believe it was that serious. Police not targeted.
It doesn't seem like we would have anything going on in the city right now for people to go over to the police department to just break out windows.
The reality is this is property that is going to have to be repaired or replaced by taxpayers. That's who pays for police vehicles and other equipment. And so that's ultimately who pays the price.
Well, we are back here live. Now, we did reach out to the department for a comment, but so far tonight, we have not heard back. We're live now at City Police Headquarters. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. We're going back to that breaking news out of Northeast Baltimore. You're taking a live look on the left there at Bel Air Road near Nicholas Avenue, where there is an active police presence. This is a developing story. Stay with Fox 45 for the latest updates on air and online. But that looks like a crime scene very close to the 7-Eleven there. Again, we'll bring you more information as it comes into our newsroom.
Former Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby will be sentenced on 3 federal convictions this May after she was found guilty of 1 of 2 counts in her mortgage fraud trial and acquitted on the other. She was previously convicted on 2 perjury charges in November of last year. This is Mosby leaving the courthouse in Greenbelt, Prince George's County last night with no comment.
Ms. Mosby, how do you feel about this split verdict?
Leave alone.
Ms. Mosby, are you happy with the decision to take the stand?
No comment. No comment. No comment. No comment. You done enough. Thank you.
Ms. Mosby.
Throughout the trial, Marilyn Mosby's defense team tried to claim she didn't knowingly lie on any mortgage application because her then husband, City Council President Nick Mosby, wasn't honest with her about the family's tax standing. While Nick Mosby was on the stand, prosecutors allege he lied on his tax forms multiple times. After today's Board of Estimates meeting, which Mosby chairs, Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost questioned him about his ability to lead and what happens next.
If I could go back in time and change things, I'm not saying I'm a perfect person. I made that mistake, and we're going to move forward. So obviously the voters will have a chance to determine if what I have put forth to date in my record of service, if that speaks volumes in this upcoming election.
Are you concerned about what this means for you personally in terms of the possibility of potential charges now that what you've said on the stand?
Yeah, no, not at all. I have been transparent with this process the entire time. I mean, when the federal government came into City Hall and did what they did to publicly announce this investigation, I sat down with them at that time. Every time that they reached out, I sat down and I was willing to take the stand and be very transparent about what is taking place and where we are. Again, I don't think I didn't expect personal taxes to rise to the level of 3 years long of investigation into every aspect of my life and where we are, but it did. It's about time to move forward. I'm glad that, this is somewhat behind us. It's been here for 3 years, right when I took office, and I look forward to continue to push forward. I think the key thing is I've showed up every single day, whether it's the Board of Estimates, whether it's City Council President presiding over the council, through a tremendous amount of adversity, and I'll continue to do so.
Well, Fox 45 News also pressed Mayor Brandon Scott, who says it's up to the voters to decide Mosby's future at City Hall.
As long as he is serving in that role as council president, he has a duty to do that role. And the voters in Baltimore will determine whether he should have that or not. For me, I just have to do my job and work with whoever's in the role.
Fox 45 has been following the years-long legal saga surrounding Marilyn Mosby since the beginning. For our full coverage on her case, head to foxbaltimore.com.
Governor Wes Moore lays out his push to expand housing during today's State of the State address. The plan has 3 parts. 2 of them call for building more housing and leveraging more resources from the federal government. The third focuses on their renters and their rights, specifically when it comes to evictions. Some Republicans are raising red flags about that proposal, saying they worry about the potential impact on investment.
Last year, we got Maryland's economy moving. We will continue to build on our progress. We will cut red tape so that Maryland is the friendliest state in the nation to start and build a business.
We're not talking about people, hey, I lost my job, I'm down for a month, I'm disabled, I have a little bit of a problem. We're talking about people who simply say, I can't afford to live here. I think that his bill probably goes a little too far.
Well, the governor also praising the blueprint for Maryland's future, also known as the Kirwan Education Plan, saying he's fully funding it once again.
It is time. It is time. It is time to support our students. It is time to support our educators. And it's time to support our public schools. And that time is now. And that is why, for the second year in a row, our administration has proposed record funding for K-12 schools and fully funded the blueprint for Maryland's future.
The plan pumps $30 billion additional tax dollars into education statewide in its first 10 years, then $4 billion additional dollars every year after that. Local jurisdictions are footing the bill. We have heard from local leaders who say they are struggling to meet the funding requirements. Some of them called for the General Assembly to change the funding formula.
I ask for your assistance with Blueprint. We find ourselves in an unprecedented time, and quite frankly, Carroll County, we're struggling.
It was a gut punch.
You know, I've got counties on the Eastern Shore that have said for the entire time since Kirwan has been passed that they cannot afford.
I think I speak for all of our county executives in saying that our people can't deal with the financial impact that the Kirwan as it stands is placed upon our taxpayers and our citizens.